Hello, and welcome to She Leads Biotech, the podcast that celebrates women leaders in the bioscience space. I'm your host, Sharon Cox, CEO and Managing Director of CNA International, based right here in New York. And each week I'll be talking to women leaders about their work, their triumphs and challenges, providing invaluable insight into how women can unlock their superpowers and succeed on their own terms. So whether you're navigating your own career path in bioscience or you're passionate about science and innovation, I hope you're empowered and inspired by each episode. From her first exposure to oncology research through her mother's work to hands-on experience in pharmacies and clinical trials during college, today's guest built a career rooted in curiosity, resilience, and leadership. She's navigated both the sponsor and CRO sides of the industry, held senior roles that spanned regulatory affairs to global operations, and is known for leading with authenticity, trust, and a relentless focus on people. She describes herself as a what you see is what you get leader. Authentic, sleeves rolled up, and deeply committed to solving problems alongside her team, clients, and partners. And as her career continues to expand into board work, mentorship, and public speaking, she's shaping not just the future of her company, but the future of leadership in life sciences. So please welcome today's guest, the CEO and Chairwoman of Lexitas Pharma Services, Jeanne Hecht. Hi, Jeanne. How are you?
Good. I hope you are as well.
Indeed. It's Friday, so what could possibly go wrong? So you're in North Carolina, right? Is that where I'm speaking to you from today?
I am. I live in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and our offices are in Durham, North Carolina.
Well, thank you for joining us. It's really great to talk to you. You have done so much, I have to say. When I was looking at your profile, very, very busy lady. And I really want to unpack some of the stuff that you've done and things that the audience will, I'm sure, appreciate. But how did it all start for you? Is this an industry that you'd always wanted to be in, or did it find you somewhere along the way? How did it start for you?
It's a good question. Well, I will tell you it's an industry I had exposure to from probably my high school years on, because my mother was a research oncology study coordinator. And
Right.
So she was very engaged in clinical trials for patients who were suffering from different cancers. And so she'd come home and talk about it. And then I worked all the way through college and part of high school in a pharmacy, in different pharmacies. And my last year and a half at the university, working at the University of Michigan's Ambulatory Care Center, we were doing a lot of investigational research studies for Prozac and other products. So I was the person that would take and create the two different types of kind of pill packs, the placebo versus the regular, et cetera, as one of my many duties there. So I kind of fell into that. And while I did not study pharmacy in college, I was a limnology water chemistry major. Started, I kind of migrated back into the industry. Spent a couple of years teaching special needs children in Hawaii. And then when I moved back to Michigan, which is where I was born and raised, back in the kind of mid 90s.
In the
Yes, exactly. I took a job at Park Davis, and so I left teaching and ran into a high school friend who connected me with his mom, who was working at Park Davis, and took a job there. Quite frankly, a very entry-level position, but started to build muscle memory on the clinical trial and pharmaceutical industry. So that's how I got into it. And then my life took me down to North Carolina in 98. And I came down here and I started working at the Cancer Center as a regulatory affairs officer. And I was also study coordinator on brain cancer clinical trials.
Oh, wow.
So I was working at the Lineberger Cancer Center under the direction of Shelley Earp, who's a wonderful man, and a woman named Joy Ostroff, who I just can't say enough good things about. And that started taking me into obviously clinical trials, and entered industry in 2000, end of 2000, I started working at Quintiles, and then kind of the rest is history, I guess, as they say.
And you're currently, I think we should mention, you're currently the CEO at Lexitas, which is a CRO. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So I'm the CEO and chairwoman of the board. I have been an operating advisor and strategic advisor for QHP Capital, who are the owners of Lexitas. We're a 14-year-old, almost 15 years now, ophthalmic focused contract research organization that strives to help change the way people see the world, and doing that by providing really good service to our pharmaceutical, biotech, and medtech sponsors and the design and execution of their clinical programs. So it's a lot of fun.
And you've worked in sponsor companies as well as CROs, haven't you? You've been involved in all different. What have you found to be the difference?
Yeah, I think it's about how you look at solving the problem. So, from a services point of view, our desire and goal is to always ensure that we're delivering on the promise that we made to the client sponsor. And so, our goal there is to make sure that we're hitting the timelines, which at Lexitas we have the benefit of doing very well. Have not missed a timeline since August of 23. And in addition to that, we spend a lot of our time understanding and being very knowledgeable about the entire therapeutic area of ophthalmology. So all the subspecialties, building relationships with KOLs across multiple different subspecialties, be it front of the eye or back of the eye. In a sponsor company, you tend to be very focused on one product, one indication. And so perhaps you're working on a really important product for treating dry eye disease or age-related macular degeneration. You're going to be really focused on that subspecialty. Versus at Lexitas, we want to understand all of the different areas that are causing modifications into one's ability to see. So we want to understand AMD, we want to understand inherited retinal diseases, we want to be very knowledgeable in anterior segment diseases, so dry eye, blepharitis, etc. And so that's what our goal is. And so it's a little bit different where we want to be, I don't want to call it generalist because we're very specialized in what we know and who we know. And we want to be also the connector and the networker for our customer sponsors to help them get a deeper understanding within a therapeutic area perhaps that they're new to.
So would you say that you were a specialist generalist in as
Yes.
much as that you know all things about eyes and
Yes.
that kind of thing, rather than being in a company that was really only focused on one element of eye disease?
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, right? And we're different. And the reason why we're specialists is because we're not a multi-therapeutic CRO. So we don't do cardiovascular and ophthalmology. We only do ophthalmology. And so we're specialized in that area. But then within that area, we don't only focus on front of the eye or back of the eye indications. We work across all of those indications.
And I imagine, sorry to interrupt you, but I imagine that would be of great benefit to your clients who may themselves have to be working outside of what they immediately started, particularly in the current climate where you kind of got to be ready to jump into all sorts of other areas. You're there to support it because you've got that experience from other clients as well.
100%. Within it, what we really enjoy or what I love is working with the different research physicians and their study staff, who many of the study staff might be engaging with patients in other subspecialties as well. And so they're not just, for example, treating patients with GA. They might also have a glaucoma specialist and be seeing patients who have glaucoma. And it just depends on the size and the scale of the practice. And so our ability then, when a client sponsor comes to us and says, we need help, we're entering into this new indication, we're able to bring them the experts, be it in cataracts, be it in XLRS, which is an inherited disease, you name it. We're able to do that for our clients and bring to them the researchers who might also even just be they might not be treating patients per se. They might just be really great academics, vision scientists who can help people explore new novel endpoints and understand the risks and benefits within those endpoints.
So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was leadership. And I'm just going to put it out there. You are an award-winning CEO of the year 2025.
Yes, thank you. I'm honored. It's a humbling experience because I don't look at myself that way. And so it was amazing and just really, I really appreciate those that recognized and recommended me.
And how did you feel? Because I'm a wannabe actress. And for me, everything was always about being nominated for an Emmy or a Tony or an Oscar or something like
Mhm.
that. And I always like to imagine how I would feel if I got that call that says, you've been nominated, and then, God forbid, that your name gets called out and you win. How did you feel about it?
Well, the first is, to be frank, I was shocked. And so I was nominated for both Triangle Business Journal CEO of the Year, and then I got the Bronze Award from the Stevie Awards, which is a huge recognition. And I I didn't know I had been nominated. And so
Okay.
the first thing was I was like, wow, this is amazing. Then the second thing was they're talking about me, right? I mean, surely I'm not that old, right? I can't possibly be that old and experienced yet. And then the last was just really humbled because I was honored. I mean, I feel like what brings me in doing everything I do every single day are the people that I work with. And I really appreciated the fact that this was a nomination from them. And so it just felt wonderful.
What does leadership mean to you? What type of leader would you consider that you are amongst your team?
Um, I'm a you see what you get kind of leader. So I'm very authentic. I'm a roll up your sleeves. I love to be engaged. I want to help my team members, my clients, my partners solve critical problems. I am one who is very curious. And so I research a lot, ask a lot of questions. I love to be connected to many different parts of the business. And I'm just extremely interested in engaging and working with people. So for me, anything around leadership to me is just about being my authentic self and being somebody who people want to engage with, and because I want to engage with them.
Right. And has that always been your style, or was it something throughout your career that you adapted, that you realized, oh, I've done it this style and that's kind of not working for me, and you found your way? Or has it been just the way I've always done it and it seemed to work?
I definitely have evolved in my leadership style over the years. And probably early on, I was too much of a micromanager, right? I learned later in my career about the trust but verify, and learned that really empowering folks allows them to, quite frankly, bring their best selves to you. I've also, over the years, really practiced because I am an impatient person. So I will not hide behind that. I'm a high impact player, so I like to see results, etc. So I've had to, over the years, really work on how do I handle my patience level with people. And so
Right.
that can at times be pretty challenging. So I think early on in my career, I probably was not as patient with others as I am now. And I still have room to grow.
And I found in my early days of leadership, the way that I found most was actually to tell people, this is how I am. And what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
If there's something I'm not happy about, you'll know about it. But we'll work together to put it right. And I found that helped people, particularly if it was like younger recruiters that I was managing. If you're up there saying, look, this is how I am, this is what I am, and there are times I don't always get it right, but I'm on your side. I'm there to make this work for you. That people were in your corner much more and kind of knew, yeah, we know what she's saying, we know what she means, we know where she's coming from. Does
Yep.
that fit
It,
for you?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I often have to tell people that I'm like the heavy, right? I'm the person that has to make the tough decision. Sometimes I sadly sometimes have to make decisions that not everybody agrees because not everybody can win, right? I want everyone to feel good about the decision that's made. It's just sometimes I have to choose one idea over the other because there's resource constraints, right? Be it time, money, or actual human beings. And I definitely think that over the years I've been able to find ways to deliver harder messages in a softer manner, and that is something that I continue to try to work on. And I agree with you. The more that you can help people realize that you as CEO or you as any kind of leader are a human, so you're not going to be perfect, right?
Yep.
I'm not going to be the most eloquent all of the time. And so as a result, I might trip up what I say. I might not answer the question thoughtfully or thoroughly. I might have 5,000 things on my to-do list, but then leads me to be super stressed at that point in time. And so when people operate under a stressed environment, they might not be their best selves. So as long as people can understand that and I can help to convey that to individuals, then I think that leaders, or me particularly, what I'm trying to deliver to people can land.
Okay. And what do you think, as being a woman CEO, that you bring to an organization that perhaps a male CEO wouldn't bring? Are
So
there areas you see?
yeah, I'm going to start first with that Lexitas, where we have more females in our organization than we do males, right?
Okay.
Which is very common in life sciences and pharmaceutical services. And so I think the first thing I bring is an opportunity to serve as a role model to other women who are younger or even midway in their career or later in their career who have aspirations of being a CEO. And there's not a lot of us out there, right? There are
Yep.
not a lot of female CEOs. I know there's been a lot of work around it, trying to get more female CEOs into position, but there's not a lot of us. So that's the first thing. I think I don't know how to compare myself to other male CEOs. And because I think that some of the things I would say that I think that are my strengths, many male CEOs have strengths. So
Yep.
networking, ability to dissect information and come to a decision quite quickly, curious mindset, very client focused, and growth mindset, right? I think a lot of other CEOs have that.
Yep.
Perhaps maybe the difference could be is the fact that as a woman, I am just generally looking at things with a different lens, right? And perhaps it's in how a message is delivered. Perhaps it's in a round of empathy. Perhaps it's in wanting to help people come together more. I don't know the answer since I've never been a male.
Yeah.
However,
Maybe we should try that. And this
exactly.
one of those Freaky Friday moments. You just switch bodies with somebody.
Exactly. So I think that as a female CEO, though, I just really hope that I'm providing women and serving as a good role model to women and men,
Yep.
and allowing men to also feel that they can be agents of women and women can be agents of men.
Yeah. And in a lot of cases, with no matter what you're delivering, it's not what you say, it's not what you deliver in terms of news, it's how it's delivered
Correct.
that can make or break certainly an individual as to how they receive a piece of information.
Yep. Correct.
Cool. Okay. So moving on, what's next for you? Where do you see the next stage for Jeanne?
It's a good question. I mean, I love what I do. I really enjoy working with all of my fellow Lexitans, my clients, the KOLs that I work with, the other partners. I love engaging and working with and feel very supported by QHP Capital. And I also enjoy the work that I do with my other hat on, which is a board seats on a board member, non-executive director on many different early stage and mid stage companies. It's a lot of fun. When I think about what's next for me, perhaps as a leader, it's continuing to hone my skills and expertise and building this great company that is Lexitas. As a non-executive director and board member, it's continuing to support those portfolio companies that I enjoy helping them grow through connections or thoughtful reviews of their data and their performance to help them understand perhaps opportunities for growth. And then as a person and a leader, just I really am enjoying continuing to hone my skills in public speaking, hone my networking skills, helping and mentoring many others, even though that my time for that gets smaller and smaller as I take on more and more mentees. So I think that's kind of what's next for me. If I was to think in 5 years, time frame or 10 years time frame, I'll migrate out of an operator role eventually and move into kind of board and advisory role, which I enjoy a lot.
One of the questions I want to ask you, which always comes to me, our younger audience members tend to want to always have this question asked. A career in the bioscience space comes with its own challenges. Every career has its challenges, but I think particularly at the moment that there are lots of challenges in this and things go wrong. Can you tell me about a time in your career where things just went wrong, where there was a failure involved, and how that became maybe a turning point in your career?
Yeah, I think I used this several weeks ago as an example when I was with the ophthalmology world leaders, a really great group called OWL. And we were out in Newport Beach, California as part of the Octane Conference series. And I talked about setting up a foreign entity. So I was COO for a company. We were looking to set up a foreign entity in China. I spent a lot of time. I didn't spend enough time being as curious as I should have been about what was the right legal entity to set up. And so as a result, when we first went into China, we went in under a representative office. And being a representative office limits what you can do as opposed to a wholly owned foreign entity. And so our growth plan for China ended up being stunted for several months because I didn't follow my gut and I didn't challenge kind of the advice that I was being given. I wasn't as curious and didn't seek out as many different people to give me advice as I should have about what's the best route. And perhaps I thought too much with speed as opposed to thoroughness. And so we set up a rep office, then had to then go and pay to do that, and then had to go pay and go through a very long process to set up a wholly owned foreign entity, which is what we needed to be in order for dollars and cents to transact and commercial transactions to happen across China, because we were an entity that was based out of France and the United States. And so I feel like while that was a failure for me in the fact that it didn't get set up in time, there was a lot of headache around it. I felt like I learned a lot about not always taking the first person's answer as the holy grail, allowing myself the time to actually do a little bit more research and ask other members, because I was really taking advice from one or two people and I should have done my own research. And so I think to me, those were some of the lessons that I learned, that it's okay to like pause and to ask more questions. And it's okay not to be the smartest person in the room. You're the smartest person in the room when you ask the most questions, right?
Yeah. And also that gut feel about something as well. I put a lot of emphasis on that sort of gut feeling about something, whether it's a gut feeling to say, you shouldn't be doing this, or a gut feeling to say, you need more information. You need to keep asking the questions. It's whatever that little niggly feeling is sometimes is the one to listen to.
Exactly. And I did not listen to my gut.
Right.
And I am usually a leader who leads with my gut.
So I just want to go back to the CRO and sponsorship area. What would you think is that makes for a successful CRO sponsor relationship?
It sounds just so like taboo, but I would say trust. And one of the things that I think has always been a little bit difficult for CROs and sponsors is perhaps sponsors in their role believe that they know what it's like to work in a CRO, because maybe 10 or 15 years before or 5 years before they worked for a CRO. And then conversely, CROs often think that they know what the sponsor is dealing with because they've dealt with many different sponsors, or maybe they worked in a sponsor company. So instead of trying to actually seek to understand and to ensure that working in a cohesive manner, we make assumptions. And as a result, I think that's the first massive miss in a partnership, is when you make too many assumptions about the other party. I think that's one thing. The other thing I think so alignment, again, asking the right questions, it takes a long time. I think the other thing is that people don't realize, like, they feel like they go through a bid process, they sign a contract, and then everything is supposed to be perfect, right? But there's something that I've learned and heard many times from Vern Davenport, which is if you have employees and you have customers, nothing ever goes to plan. Okay. And so here we're dealing with both. You've got your clients, your customers, and you have the employees, and nothing's going to go to plan. And the reason why is because the client sponsors came with their own plan. The CRO had 2 weeks to design something that would match that plan. And then now we're supposed to execute on it and go forth. And we all know that, like, you can't just build a house in 2 weeks. It takes time and effort. And so we need to spend a lot more time partnering and having kind of those tough conversations and not having egos at the table. And that's the other challenge. So the other thing I feel like is the biggest problem is sometimes the client sponsors want to be the alpha and the CROs want to show that they know so much. And so it's hard if, for example, the CRO has more knowledge. How do they handle that while maintaining the respectful position that you are working on behalf of your client sponsor?
Right.
And at the end of the day, we're all working on behalf of the patient and the research physician and their staff. And so if we keep that in mind as well, we won't lose the plot.
And that's keeping that at the forefront, isn't it? That irrespective, it's really all about the best outcome for the patient.
Yes.
And I imagine also it would be it puts you in a strong position because of this specialist generalization that we spoke about, where you're not in a multitude of different therapeutic areas, having people going across multitude of disciplines. There might be different challenges of what the particular illness is or disease area is, but it's all linked to the same sort of area of the body. That would make it easier.
I mean, I don't know if I would say easier. What I would say is, we've done over 150 trials of the eye, right, in the last 5 years, 6 years.
Right.
Okay. And so when we're coming to a client, we're often coming from a position of strength based upon the expertise that we gather. So we've seen a lot of different clinical protocols. We've engaged with a lot of different research sites. We've understood the inclusion-exclusion criteria, and which inclusion and exclusion criteria either accelerates recruitment of these clinical trial subjects or decelerates recruitment of these clinical trial subjects. We understand the nuances of getting product into a country or out of a country. We understand how hard sometimes it is to get specialized equipment at some of these research sites and who has it and who doesn't. And the challenge often is if that information and that knowledge isn't respected. And instead, perhaps pharma client, biotech client maybe ran one other study or has a consultant who's telling them conflicting information. We often then get stuck in the middle.
Yep.
And what we're trying to do is, in the most respectful manner, is help them design the best clinical trial to achieve their outcomes. And when we can do that and we can truly be partners, that's when there's just great success all around.
Yeah. It's not that different to the recruitment world, really.
Oh, I'm sure not.
But
Right.
when giving advice to a client as to how to conduct a search area and what are the key elements, and back to again what you talked about right at the beginning is that trust element, that where you're working together in partnership, as opposed to one party thinking, oh, this is just the recruiter, or this is just another client. It's that true partnership of working together that gets the successful outcome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I actually think it's a very nice analogy, and I can see the connection clearly because as a client, when I engage a recruiter, I need them to think like Lexitas. I need them to understand my culture, our culture. I need them to understand the kind of work that we do. What's our mission, vision, and values? I want them to feel like that's part of them.
Yep.
So that when they're out there talking to individuals, that they're not just thinking with the individual's best interest at hand. They're thinking with my best interest at hand.
Yep.
And when they think that way, and then they engage the right individual or respective candidate, then they will be thinking with the candidate's best interest in mind, because they will then know that they will be the perfect fit for Lexitas.
Absolutely. And it's promoting your client as the employer of choice. You may not know about this company, you may not know about but you need to be talking to them because their values of ABC match your requirements of DEF.
Yes.
And understanding both parties and being able to promote what's best for everybody.
Yep, exactly.
Where do you see the CRO biotech relationship developing over time, and particularly in these challenging times where everybody's on kind of heightened alert on just about everything? How can that relationship between a CRO and a biotech evolve, say, over the next 5 years?
Well, I think the first thing is that my clients, most of them are biotech or med tech. And I view myself as, number one, an access source for information. So if they want to understand glaucoma or they want to understand geographic atrophy, I'd like for them to reach out, and they do, and ask me for information about that therapeutic area. I mean, we have access to all sorts of data, right? Our own data, global data, ZymeWire, you name it. And so I want to help them be successful. I'm going to put a little caveat, though, is that I do have a business to run. And so sometimes that can't always be free. The next thing is that I want to help them get access to capital. So I'm going to do everything I possibly can to ensure that they have access to capital. And I'm going to help them, and I want to help them be prepared to do so. My biggest challenge with biotechs is there's a couple different type of biotech or medtech companies out there. There are the doctors with ideas who are very clinically and medically sound, and they really understand the problem they're trying to solve at the patient level, but perhaps they lack substantial expertise in how to define a return on investment for an investor, right? Because all of these deals have to be underwritten. No different than no bank is going to give you money if you can't prove that you have a reproducible income on a monthly basis to be able to cover your bills and pay them back. The same thing happens as it relates to an underwriting an investment, is that they want to make sure that there is a return model. What is that return like? How do they get to perhaps the first portion of that return, first money in, right? So that's, or I should say first money out. So the next thing is that I want to make sure that we're helping them with that. So how can I help them connect? I can't guarantee money, but I can sure as heck use my network to try to open access networks. So that's the next thing. And then like I said, I want to help them with their knowledge around the problem they're trying to solve. I also would love, and many of the folks that I work with are extremely open to feedback, because we see a lot. And I see a lot of non-con decks for capital raise. I see a lot of protocols. I see a lot of clinical development plans, see a lot of FDA meeting minutes, and would love the opportunity to help them determine the best strategy to actually be successful in all of those areas. So that includes, I give a lot of feedback to biotechs on the shortcomings of their investor decks. We give a lot of feedback to people about the right strategy for engaging with the FDA at, be it an end of phase 2 meeting, or you name it, right? We also provide a lot of feedback on protocols. And again, what ends up happening sometimes is the conflict of information, because they've spent some money on a scientific advisory committee or board, and then we're coming in with different recommendations at times than with those set. So it's about balancing through that and understanding that my goal, our ultimate goal, is to help them develop a clinical trial that'll obtain registrational approval and potentially lead to the commercial success of their asset.
And that's got to come back to that trust element again, hasn't it? It's, and you being that authentic person. It's like, look, listen, go ask other people if you want, but I'm here to help you. And this is what I'm trying to kind of tell you, so to speak. And I can only see this evolving as, investment gets tighter, continues to get tighter for companies, and they want to make the most of the access to skills to be able to kind of put it under one roof with one expert who can look at the clinical development side of it, who can look at this documentation and actually improve on the service by saying, here's a kind of one-stop shop for you to have everything you need to be successful. As well as one of the ones that I found when I've been to conferences and seen that kind of doctor, founder, scientist, founder who's got amazing science and really puts the spreadsheets up and they're all fabulously there, but couldn't sell the concept for toffee. And that's kind of what you were talking about with the investor aspect of helping companies sell the dream for the investors to want to invest in.
100%. I think that a position of strength is when somebody understands when they're not in the right role. And oftentimes a research scientist physician is not in the right role when they are CEO, right? They're an amazing CSO, amazing CMO, but they are not in the right position as CEO, because the CEO's job is people and strategy. And obviously the strategy includes how are you going to get to the right capital structure to afford and run your business. If that is not your strength, check your ego. You can still be the largest holder on the cap table, but check your ego and bring in somebody who can actually help you run and scale a really good business and engenders the support of the investors who are giving you money, which isn't even their money. It's the LPs, right? So the limited partners put the money into the funds, of that money then goes. So it could be the guy down the street from you who's just retired and put in $100,000 into a fund, right? So I think with that in mind, I think the challenge often is that people look at it too much as VCs or private equity, and they're not looking at who those individuals are trying to underwrite for. And they're trying to protect the dollars that these everyday people have given them.
Okay. I'm very conscious of your time, and I really appreciate the time you've given me. So I just want to ask you one more question back to our younger listeners who are working through the start of their career. If somebody is looking at, do I go from academia into industry? Do I go from industry to a CRO or a CDMO? Or what would you say to them would be the best place to start, and how to navigate that decision as to where they should take their career?
Well, I'm going to say that my father was a lifelong educator, and he always used to joke, but he was seriously half the time. And he said, create your list, right? What are the pluses and minuses? Understand, do your homework, right? Make sure, well, first of all, most people don't stay in jobs for 30 years, right? So if you make a wrong decision, it's okay, right? Just like take a breath and figure out how you can take perhaps a undesirable situation and turn it into a desirable one, right? The next thing is be thinking about what skills it is you want to learn. So what skills you want to learn. Are there particular technologies? Are there particular, hard skills, soft skills that you want to learn? And make sure that you've really thought about that. And so is it, if you want stronger financial acumen, is it you want a stronger science background? Is it that you want to understand what it's like to be in a services business and support clients and customers? Is it you want to be closer to the patient or the clinical trial participant? Like, make sure you understand that and understand the why behind it.
Yep.
Because then that'll make you a lot more successful in how and where you direct your career process and your selection process for which positions you want to apply for. The other thing is with everything that's out there right now, between AI, the number of people, et cetera, you're going to get no's. And so the way to reduce the number of no's that you're going to get is through building a very strong network and leveraging that network to help you with warm introductions. So I think number one is look at it as a strategy and think through specifically how, what you want to learn, how long you want to learn it, and then think through how are you going to go about increases your chances of actually accomplishing that near-term milestone.
Brilliant. A fantastic piece of advice there. So thank you very much for that, Jeanne. Well, this has been amazing. I've so enjoyed the conversation and hearing about the work that you do at Lexitas. I wish you continued success. I expect you to be CEO of the year in 2026 as well. So keep working towards that. Yeah, every success for you and the company going forward. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time. And to all those listeners out there, thank you for your time as well.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Take care. Bye-bye. Well, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. She Leads Biotech is brought to you by CNA International USA, a woman-owned boutique search firm based in New York. If you're looking to hire talent for your company or want support in achieving your career goals, please reach out to me at contact@cnaint.com. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. And remember, the success of every woman should be an inspiration to another. So don't be afraid to share yours. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.